This is the iGo Discovery Yorkville LE, and it's a commuter e-bike, so it's designed to get you to and from work every day safely and effectively. Does this one measure up to the challenge? Let's take a ride and find out. Before we dive in, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, especially if you're in the market for an e-bike. This will keep you up to date on all of our reviews, so we can hopefully help you find a bike that works for you. First things first though, the naming conventions with iGo's Discovery series of bikes can get a little complicated. There are both high step and step through versions. iGo calls the high step the Yorkville and the step through is the Rosemont. There are also various designations at the end that indicate spec levels and trim packages. There's the LS, the LE, and the LE1. So as the Discovery Yorkville LE, this is the mid-tier option with a high-step frame and a rear hub motor. One of the first things that jumped out to me about this bike was just the huge number of name brand parts here. There's an absolute boatload. There's that 500-watt rear hub motor. That's made by Bafeng. It uses a cadence sensor, and I've got to say I was pretty impressed by the sensitivity of that. It only took about 1/8 of a turn of the cranks to engage the motor, so it kicked in almost immediately and just made the bike super easy to use. The battery here uses reliable Samsung cells, definitely on the bigger side. The LE model uses a removable 48-volt, 720 watt-hour battery. That's concealed in the down tube, and it plays a lot into the range on this bike. iGo advertises it as up to 69 miles, which is very nice. There's an 8-speed Shimano Acera drivetrain, which is a nice step up from what we often see, and that uses a 42-tooth chainring and an 11 to 32-tooth cassette. The brakes here are the familiar Tektro E350 hydraulic system with 180mm rotors. There's a KMC chain, and there's a really comfortable Cell Royal saddle. This version of the bike is priced between $2,000 and $2,500, and in such a saturated market, I think really going that extra mile and including so many quality parts helps the bike stand out, but then also just justifies that price tag. In any case, you also get a nice package of essential accessories on a commuter bike here, like a rear cargo rack with 55 pounds of capacity. There's a headlight, a tail light, and of course fenders. The comfort factor here is great, which is just super important on a commuter bike. There's only a single frame size here, but with about 8 inches of adjustment in saddle height and also a quick adjust stem, iGo says this bike fits riders between 5'2" and 6'2". There's also a nice set of ergonomic low-rise handlebars with ergonomic grips, so overall just a really great set of comfortable features. If we look a little bit closer at the cockpit, things are pretty simple, but the combination control panel and display was definitely a big highlight for me. The 5 pedal assist settings here are color-coded, the buttons are big and easy to press, and plus there's also some unique data there. For example, it can show you how much of your ride was actually spent in each of the pedal assist settings. That was super cool to see and very refreshing, just good to have something different. There's also an app called iGo Ride that the LS and LE versions of the bike compare to. I didn't find that super useful aside from switching the bike to Class 3 mode, but I'm sure the GPS function will be useful to a lot of folks out there. And then one more extra little thing, I want to give iGo some credit for having a truly great user manual. Most of the time those aren't very helpful, but in this case, iGo's is really thorough and detailed, and it has a lot of nice diagrams. So if you're new to e-bikes, this is actually going to be incredibly useful, instead of just being something you'd look at once and then likely never come back to. In any case, let's keep things rolling and check out the Yorkville LE's performance in our testing. The goal of our brake test is to ensure that brakes are safe and effective, And we test them by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, slamming on the brakes, and then measuring the distance the bike travels as it comes to a stop. The Discovery Yorkville had a longer than average stopping distance when looking at similar bikes we've tested, but its results are still within the range we consider safe. We performed the test 3 times, and we measured an average stopping distance of 24 feet 4 inches from those Tektro hydraulic disc brakes that I mentioned. This system uses 2 piston calipers with 180 millimeter rotors. By the numbers, the result here was a little longer than I expected to see based on our previous experiences with these brakes. The system on our bike may not have been tuned up as well as it should have, but overall this is still well within our normal range of expected results. In my time on the bike outside of this test, I thought the brakes felt good and responded well, and the bike itself was actually able to remain pretty stable thanks to the 2.4-inch wide tires. A little squealing, a little fishtailing, but nothing out of the ordinary. So I think it's safe to say that the Discovery Yorkville LE is spec'd well, and the system here does its job effectively. I did a speed test on the bike in Class 2 mode to check out how fast it could go in each of its pedal assist settings. Since the Discovery Yorkville LE also has a throttle, I recorded an acceleration test to see how quickly it could reach the limit of 20 miles per hour with that. Let's go see how it did. All right, here we are on the iGo Discovery Yorkville LE. I'm in no motor assistance right now, pedaling right around 10 miles per hour. Let's kick it up into eco mode. Little subtle boost, pretty minimal assistance here. I'm in 4th gear. We're looking right around 10.5-ish. Let's go up into tour mode. Little smooth extra bit of assistance kicking in. Getting up into 5th gear. And we're around 11 miles per hour there. Kick it back down a little bit. Yep, all right, 11 miles per hour. Back up to sport mode. Now that's very comfortable speed. Again, very smooth engagement there. Able to get it up into 6th gear. It's like about 14.5 miles per hour. Go up into turbo mode. There we go. Does take a little bit of time to get up to speed here. Up into 8th gear. Still climbing. Pedaling around 19 miles per hour. Still pretty casual pace. And then we'll kick it up into boost mode, and that's quite a kick there. A little bit of extra power in that mode, which makes sense for boost. And I don't know if you see, but we're actually going over 20 miles an hour now. That's what the motor here does. It gets you up a little bit higher and then backs down right to 20. So that is the speed distribution and speed test for the Discovery Yorkville LE. All right, we're going to do a throttle acceleration test on the iGo Discovery Yorkville LE. And starting now. Nice and steadily building, not too slow, not too fast. And we're actually going to get over, so we're at 20 now, but then you'll see that the throttle goes a little bit above that, but then falls back down, which the bike does the same thing in pedal assist as well. So that's it. So as you could see, it pedaled pretty well without motor assistance. We measured about 10 miles per hour there. With the pedal assist system in class 2 mode, we got just a tiny bump in eco mode and measured 10.5 miles per hour. Definitely a little underpowered. Tour mode was also pretty minimal. I got up to about 11.5 there, 14.5 miles per hour in sport mode and 19.5 in turbo mode, then 20 miles per hour in boost mode. As a quick side note, if you put the bike in class 3 settings, the only real difference I found was in boost mode, which then rocketed up to around 26 miles per hour. A couple of things about our results. First, I think the bike's power and speeds are generally well distributed, but I'd like to see some rebalancing overall. I'd like to see more of a bump in eco mode and then a redistributing of the other settings so that boost mode can make a little bit more of a difference when the bike is set to be a class 2. We usually like about a 2 mile per hour difference between settings, assuming that the lowest one starts around 12 miles per hour. I couldn't help but feel that the lower PAS settings here were a little bit more restricted on this bike than on some of the other commuter style bikes with 500 watt motors that I've ridden previously, but it definitely made up for that in boost mode. As you saw, that setting has just a lot more of a kick, which I imagine might have helped if I needed to overtake another cyclist out on the path. In both boost mode and with the throttle, the bike does carry you a few miles per hour over 20 before backing down to that limit, and I appreciate that that makes sure you get up to speed quickly. The goal of our range test was pretty simple. We wanted to see how far this bike could go with its 720 watt hour battery, which always varies depending on the amount of motor assistance being used. The Yorkville LE did a fantastic job here, just as we expected based on its relatively big battery and also iGo's advertisements of up to 69 miles. We measured between about 40 and 72 miles depending on our level of pedal assist, but I want to point out that we didn't test the bike in eco mode since there was so little power there. We stuck with tour and boost modes exclusively. Our tour mode result of 72 miles is pretty crazy, and I think we probably would have measured even better results without all the hills on our bike paths here. Just going on what we did measure, if you have a 10-mile commute one way and you don't mind keeping the bike in a lower setting, you should be able to do that for at least 3 days without having to recharge, and that's pretty impressive. As always, Justin did the hill climb test on the Yorkville LE, so I'll pass you over to him so you can get an idea of his first-person experience, and then I'll see you again shortly to wrap things up.
Okay, here we're on the throttle test on the iGo Discovery Yorkville. This one's feeling a little more peppy than some of the other iGos that I've hill tested on the throttle only. Doing pretty good so far. So right now at about 9 miles per hour through that section. Not too bad. We got one more steep section up here that can trip up bikes as well, but my guess from what I'm feeling, we're not going to have an issue making an uphill hole. Overall, the motor, I'll kind of go quiet here in a second so you can hear it, but it is not very loud actually. It's fairly quiet for a rear hub. So yeah, you hear that clicking. That's the rear, that's the hub, not the hub motor. I always like that clicking sound on a bike. So it did really well. This is again the last this is the hardest section on the test. Let's see, I bet we get down to about 7 miles per hour. Oh, it might stay at 8. Oh, 7.4, 7.0. Yeah, 7.0 was the lowest this got. So if you are looking to, you know, just be lazy or slash have fun and just throttle up a hellhole hill like this, you'll definitely be able to on this bike from iGo. Okay, so here we are on the iGo Discovery Yorkville pedal test. I'm in, 8th gear, so the highest gear, not having to pedal very hard at all. It's doing really well. We're at about 13 miles an hour up this section. I may not have to downshift. Probably, let's see how it feels. Shifts nicely. Again, a lot of these rear hub motors actually shift fairly well on the hills because you're kind of getting pushed up by the rear hub motor, so you don't have quite as much tension on the chain, which is actually a nice advantage of the rear hub. This next section, again, the more steep section through here and downshift. So I got down to 10.8 miles per hour. I was just very lightly pedaling is all. You can hear the motor, I'd say about average for a rear hub. You definitely notice it. But pretty soon you actually kind of tune that out. And overall, this is definitely a nice, hill climbing machine. Shifts really nice, like the rapid shifters. And I like the power of it.
So overall, I liked what Justin said about the bike feeling fairly average. That actually lines up with the data really well. We measured 1 minute and 41 seconds and an average speed of 10.7 miles per hour with the throttle. And then in boost mode, we measured 1 minute and 19 seconds at 13.7 miles per hour. Those results landed pretty much in the middle of the pack when compared to other commuter e-bikes that we've tested. But that's good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with lining up with other similar bikes. The Yorkville definitely slowed down a bit on throttle, but it handled the climb both times without a hitch. So bottom line, there really shouldn't be too many hills out there that are going to challenge this bike. Before we wrap things up, let's go out for another ride so you can get a bit of a sense of how this bike actually feels when you're on it. All right, let's discuss ride quality on the Discovery Yorkville LE. This is a commuter bike, so definitely a little bit more comfortable than more of like a city or road bike. This bike has a ton of adjustability. You've got this quick adjust stem here, so you can really set the handlebar height to where you need it to be. You can also rotate the handlebars as needed. Quick adjust saddle. So finding a good fit for you is pretty easy. For me, I like this more upright posture. The tires are 27.5 inch by 2.4. So they're relatively wide, have a nice street tread pattern, so they roll pretty smoothly. They grip well on pavement, but they're not going to be great for riding on, dirt or gravel or grass, that sort of thing. There is a suspension fork that's made by RST. It's maybe a little bit of a better quality than on some of the other more affordable e-bikes that we've tested. This one feels like a little bit more fluid, a little bit more adaptive to bumps and rougher pavement. The motor engagement here is really nice. This bike uses a cadence sensor for its 500 watt motor, and it engages really quickly. I'll actually back off, let a little coast here, and then I'm gonna move my feet now, and you can get a feel for how quickly the motor engages. So right there. You know what, I'm gonna kick it up into a higher setting so that you can hear it a little bit more. All right, and moving my feet now. Just almost immediate, feels very nice. Again, boost mode, a bit more acceleration than the other settings. The others are a little bit more reserved, a little more back down. I'm gonna turn around here and you can see decent handling, decent turning ability. The handlebars here are relatively wide, so you have kind of a nice balance between stability and control. Overall, I think this is a super comfortable bike, and I'll talk more about it in the studio. As I said, I think the Discovery Yorkville was a really comfortable bike overall. There's some solid ergonomics here, just with all of the points of adjustability. I'm 5'11", so I'm on the taller end of its rider height spectrum, but I was definitely able to get a great fit, and I really liked that it was possible to get a variety of rider positions, whether you want something more upright or you want a little bit more of an aggressive lean. I liked the feel of the fairly beefy grips here, but that is something I'd probably swap out. The ones here are press fit, and they moved around a lot on me while I was out riding, so I'd probably choose an ergonomic rubber with clamps to hold them in place, but overall that's a pretty minor change. I liked the shape and the supportiveness of the saddle, and I liked the overall handling of the bike. That motor engagement was one of my absolute favorite things though. We've started seeing pretty responsive cadence sensors a lot more often lately, and I think they're starting to bridge what used to be a pretty big gap between the feel of torque and cadence sensors. They're never going to quite deliver the feel that a torque sensor can, but the cadence sensor on the Discovery Yorkville here is definitely one of the best that you'll find. I was really impressed with the Yorkville LE. This was actually my first experience with a bike from iGo, and just based on this experience, consider me a convert. I think they're doing it right. And I definitely think that this bike checks all the boxes for an awesome commuter. As I talked about in the last section, I think the comfort level here and the overall ride quality were both excellent, and in terms of performance, the distance this bike can travel, as we found in our range test, is absolutely fantastic. Those on a commuter bike are some of the most important elements, by far. I also really appreciated seeing so many name brand parts here. There are just a ton of similar e-bike options in the $1,500 to $2,000 price range, but oftentimes those use some components that either don't show a brand at all, or also maybe one that doesn't have an established track record. So getting a bike in this price range removes those unknown variables, and it gives you a little bit more guaranteed bang for your buck in terms of quality and performance. There are a couple of minor improvements that I'd like to see here. The biggest is the bike's power output in eco mode. I'd love to see that bumped up so that it could become a bit more of a meaningful setting, and my only other real point of critique is color. Each combination of trim packages and frame styles only has one color option, which is obviously black in this case, but for a bike priced between $2,000 and $2,500, I definitely appreciate seeing a little bit more variety with some unique color options. Bottom line though, this is a solid commuter that I would happily recommend to anyone looking for a daily use e-bike. It definitely has the elements needed to get you to and from work effectively, but it's also just a good all-around bike for riding into town on the weekends or getting some exercise in the evenings. If you enjoyed this review, please do like and subscribe, and please also check out the links in the video description. The first will take you to iGo's website, so you can look at all of the Discovery Series e-bikes from them, and the second will direct you over to our website, which is electricbikereport.com, where you can read my written review. And just FYI, if a step-through frame is a little bit more appealing to you, we have a review of the Discovery Rosemont LS with a mid-drive motor that should be showing up soon, so keep an eye out for that. I appreciate you taking the time to come along with me today. I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the iGo Discovery Yorkville LE.